Grab your coffee, kick off your feet. It's time for Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. There's excitement. There's joy. There's palpable energy in the room because it's the start of the NFL season tonight. There's a ton we're going to get to. But Caroline, I just got to say off the top, we got some big names today. We got some superstar guests joining. Like, I rarely just start a show by saying, oh my God, coming up. But like, yeah, you see it there. Ice Cube's going to hang out with us. Like, it's just curious. Can I spend, we're going to talk to Sal Pal too. We're going to get the Eagles sense in about 30 minutes. Ice Cube going to join us an hour or two. Can I spend the entire Ice Cube interview kind of like Chris Farley back in Saturday Night Live, where I just say, you remember that time? Like, I don't know. I just want to fangirl the entire, I can't decide if I want to fangirl him about music or fangirl him about the Raiders, but either way, I'm just going to spend, 15 minutes fangirling Ice Cube an hour or two. That's what we've learned.
This is your moment, Fitz. You fangirl all you would like. You let that freak flag fly. The floor is yours. It's not every day that you get to catch up with Ice Cube. So you know what? Do it all. Don't live life with regrets. Take a deep dive into the pool that is Ice Cube.
Nobody ever let my freak flag fly. Okay, let's get to 3 points. We start every show this way. Let's go ahead and start it that way now. Caroline Fenton, first point. What is on your mind, my friend?
Well, first and foremost, happy football to all those who observe, but we start on the hardwood with some recent news that came out yesterday. Pablo Torre reported that Kawhi Leonard reportedly signed a $28 million endorsement with a fraudulent tree planting company funded by the Clippers owner Steve Ballmer to circumvent the salary cap rules. Now, this set the sports world by storm, and the Clippers did release a statement, quote, neither the Clippers nor Steve Ballmer circumvented the salary cap. The notion that Steve invested in Aspiration, which is the tree company, in order to funnel money to Kawhi Leonard is absurd. This statement continues for 4 paragraphs, but the overwhelming sentiment and the message that the Clippers are putting forth in this statement is that they vehemently deny any wrongdoing with this tree planting company. And look, that might be the case, but if it does come out that the Clippers owner, in fact, was funneling money through this fraudulent company in order to circumvent the salary cap, which Pablo Torre has doubled down. He said, I looked through 3,000 pages of documents. I have 7 sources that worked very closely with the situation. So if it is in fact confirmed that there is, foul play and wrongdoing on behalf of the Clippers, that's bad in and of itself. But this statement makes it even worse. It makes the Clippers organization look just that much more dishonest and untrustworthy.
It is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Pablo has done a great job reporting this. He's made it clear he's not done. Mark Cuban clapped back yesterday on Twitter. It looks like they are going to have a conversation for all of us to see on air. This ain't going anywhere, Caroline. She is absolutely right about that. And we'll keep you updated on the drama as it continues to unfold. All right. Speaking of drama, I'll get to my point. We'll stay on the hardcore because we got NBA All-Star Game news. And look, I'm going to try and polish a pig here. I'm going to try and put lipstick on a pig, try and find a way to make an All-Star Game interesting to you. I'm not sure that I can do it, but I can tell you that the 2026 NBA All-Star Game format is likely to feature a round-robin tournament with 3 8-player squads of 2 USA teams, 1 world team. This has all been presented to the competition committee, the governors. They've all looked at it. Seems to get a positive response, and it looks like they'll be doing this. It also looks like they'll be doing this with 12-minute quarters will be the format that they play. All of this to try and make you care about something you can't care about. At the end of the day, we can't change the fact that games have become so readily available, and the way we consume them has become such a part of our life. In 30 years ago, it was fine to look at it and say, well, I want to see an All-Star game because I don't get the opportunity often to see Jordan. I don't get the opportunity to see Magic. There was a chapter where All-Star games had tremendous meaning because you rarely got to see these All-Stars play together. You rarely got to see players on the court with that level of name recognition at the same time. But now we live in a world where there's constant consumption of whatever your favorite sport is. If you have the NBA League Pass, you can certainly watch all the NBA action you want to see every single night. So how do you make an All-Star game interesting? The real answer is you can't. But I got to give the NBA credit because at least they're trying. And all we can ask them to do at this point is try. Now, certainly copying from the NHL, as we've talked about a lot, their ability to make an international competition resonate is something that everybody could look at and say, we want to do the same. I just don't know how the NBA stops the conversation about load management, stops the conversation about stars mailing it in, and creates a conversation around the All-Star game that will actually matter. I don't think anything will work. At least they're trying, though, and we'll see if that sparks a different level of interest when we get to the All-Star game. No need for help in a level of interest when it comes to, I don't know, football season, and it is here. We have spent months, I mean months, waiting for this moment, Caroline, and it is just, it feels so good. It feels real. Like, let's be honest, if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, since the last time you saw a meaningful Dallas Cowboys game to now, you could have had a baby. That's how long we wait for football season. From the end of the regular season to another season starting, we get Cowboys at Eagles tonight, 8:20 p.m. Eastern, Thursday Night Football. We are fully back, and I cannot wait for every second.
Some might argue it's been a little bit longer than 9 months since we've seen a meaningful Cowboys game. To be fair,
Touché.
just
Touché.
to be fair, it's been a
Touché.
little bit longer than that. But we have been Moses roaming through the desert, Fitz. We have just been searching for the teeniest, tiniest bit of football to quench our sports fan thirst. And finally, we get it tonight, at least on the NFL side of things. And of course, we get it in a battle of the heavyweights, a Dallas Cowboys team that was just absolutely shocked and floored like the rest of us after the Micah Parsons trade. The Philadelphia Eagles taking the field for the very first time after winning the Super Bowl and doing it in incredibly dramatic fashion. Football is back. And it's not even like, oh, football's back and it's kind of like a meh matchup, but we're okay with it because our threshold for quality football in the beginning of September is incredibly low. No, we are getting a great game, or at least a great rivalry tonight.
There is a moment here where there's so much drama. And let's get right to it. Like, it starts with just the fact that the Eagles are going to stay in the tunnel while the Super Bowl banners are being raised. This to me the dumbest thing in the world. Like, yeah, really? Nick Sirianni, like, oh, I didn't even know. I understand this whole, like, it's a new season. I understand all of those things that you want to say, but man, it's just weird to me to think that, okay, we're going to keep everybody in a tunnel. We're going to keep everybody in the locker room so they don't see flags being like you're going to come out afterwards. You're going to hear the roar from underneath the stadium and you're not going to know what's happening. This one feels a little forced to me, Caroline.
Yeah, like, oh, we won the Super Bowl last year? I had no idea. We're so locked in on this season that we're not even going to acknowledge the championship that we won just a few months ago. Like, please, give me a break. Loosen up. Enjoy your successes and let your team, for the last time, bask and celebrate in what they achieved last season. Because, yes, that is correct and it is true. Once that ball kicks off, it is 2025. 2024 is behind you. But these are grown men. Like, these are professional athletes. They can stand there and bask in the glory and can handle celebrating a Super Bowl last season and also turn right around and lock right in. I worked with somebody who played in the NFL for over a decade. He played in a Super Bowl, did not win a Super Bowl, but played in a Super Bowl. And I asked him, what's your one regret? Like, you had a 15-year NFL career. You know, you put together a Canton type of resume. You were beloved by everyone in the city that you played for. What's your one regret? He said, my one regret was not enjoying the Super Bowl enough, was not being able to just stand on the field and look around and soak it all in and say, I'm at freaking Super Bowl. You don't get that moment back. I think we can all believe that the Eagles look like a team right now poised to go right back to the Super Bowl. And if they don't do it this year, then they can probably do it the next. But there's never any sort of guarantee in the National Football League. Give yourself 5 seconds to enjoy one of the hardest things to do in sports and one of the most glorious moments that you will ever have in your lifetime. And that's winning a Super Bowl. Give yourself that time.
I'd also say trust your players to be able to refocus. And that's part of it. And as we get through this show and some of our predictions, I trust that the Eagles will be able to refocus. How's that for a tease? All right, so we've also got this moment here, though, where I want to think about some funny outcomes. You know, obviously, we've got Jerry trading Micah, and after that, loudly came out and said, well, now we can stop the run. I don't know, Caroline. Like, oddly specific prediction here. I really need Saquon to go for like 297 yards. For anyone that doesn't know, 296 yards is the single game rushing record held by Adrian Peterson. So Saquon, ever the selfless player, is not one to really put himself in to take records. But I need this. I want this. I need this in my life. Like, what do we need with the Cowboys? We need drama, right? That's what really fuels the soul of everybody. The Cowboys aren't a great football team now, but they're a great season of the Real Housewives, right? So we need drama. We don't need substance. And to get drama, what I need is for Saquon to go for 297. Very specifically, if he had a couple of touchdowns, that'd be a nice impact too. But 297 is the goal. Saquon sets the all-time single game rushing record against the Cowboys right after they trade Micah because they want to be able to, air quotes, stop the run. This is the sort of karmic world that I need to live in.
Why stop at 297? Let's go all the way up to 300. Why not? If we're going to put salt in the wound, we may as well douse it in that wound. And, to any Cowboys fan that says, we're better against the run now, so that was a good trade. Like, that is the healthiest dose of copium that I have heard in a very long time. You do not get better when you trade. Thank you.
Take a bow for copium. I'm
stealing
that forever.
Thank you very much. You can quote me on that. But you cannot tell me any way that you want to slice and dice it, the trading away one of the best defensive players in his prime in the National Football League makes your team better. So whether it's 300 or whether it's another kind of Saquon hurdle that we saw last season, I need a wow kind of moment from Saquon just to make things, just to make Jerry Jones just look that much dumber. It's like that trade looks that much stupider.
So I need 300 yards. You want a Saquon hurdle, right? So we've got Saquon having a lot of impact here. But let's be serious for a second about the game. Okay, what is one matchup that, when you think about one thing we haven't talked enough about in this game, what is something that stands out to you that you're really looking for?
Yeah, aside from all of the obvious storylines that are going to be talked about, two NFC East foes and, the Micah Parsons trade and the Philadelphia Eagles coming back from the Super Bowl, if we just want to look at the actual game and things that I'm going to be watching for tonight, I'm looking at CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens against this Eagles secondary. Now, there's not very many weaknesses on this Eagles team, so if I'm really going to pick it apart here, I'm not necessarily going to call it a weakness because I don't think that it's going to be a negative for this team. It's just really a question mark. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, a solid wide receiver 1 and 2 duo. And you have a young guy in Quinyon Mitchell who, what is the Eagles' plan to cover those two guys? In a Vic Fangio defense, an overwhelming majority of the time, they play zone. But are they going to choose tonight to put Quinyon Mitchell one-on-one on CeeDee Lamb? Is he going to be on CeeDee all night long? And if so, well, then who is on George Pickens? Are we going to see Cooper DeJean tonight? Or how much of Cooper DeJean are we going to see tonight? Is it going to be Adoree Jackson who comes in and kind of fills that veteran corner role since Darius Slay has left for the Pittsburgh Steelers? So I think it's just a question mark on this young and new Eagle secondary against a Cowboys passing attack that I think is going to be probably the only path to victory for Dallas tonight. It's not going to be in the run game. It's not going to be defensively. If the if the Cowboys have any shot at beating this Eagles team tonight, it's through the air.
Which is interesting to me because one of the things that I find confusing about the way that the Cowboys are built right now is Coach Schottenheimer's history loving to run the football. So I hear you that the best way to beat them is to be able to get the ball out of Dak's hands quickly and utilize your wide receivers. But if you look at Schottenheimer's history as a play caller, he loves to run the football. It is his favorite thing to do. And he loves to use the run to establish the pass, which is why this all feels broken. Like what you have right now is a pastry chef suddenly being asked to make savory dishes. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. You can tell I was a fat kid because it always comes back to food. But at some point, you've got to look at it and say, okay, do I have the right chef? I'm not sure that the Cowboys have the right chef. But even more importantly, is that chef willing to veer into what he needs to do to make this team successful? Throughout his course as a play caller, Schottenheimer has loved to establish the run. I don't think the Cowboys have a great way to do that. But I do think the Cowboys are going to need to attempt to establish some sort of running game if they have any shot here, which is where this gets really difficult. They aren't built to the strengths of their head coach, the play caller. I genuinely think we all should hold our breath a little bit and try and figure out, what does Schottenheimer look like as a head coach? There is such an unknown here. Will he steer away from what he needs to do, or what he does well, I should say, to do what he needs to do to throw the football? That is the million-dollar question. And by the way, all of this to just acknowledge one thing. You and I talked both about what the Cowboys need to do. Most importantly, the question is, can the Cowboys stop the Eagles? We'll get into how or can the Cowboys stop the Eagles, plus some official predictions for the game. We've got a lot to get into today, though, because it's time to give you some vibes. The only place in the world you will ever find the most important index to figure out how we feel about your favorite team, the Football Vibe Index, comes up next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
Calling.
Here we go, though. Here we go.
Yes.
No way.
Just go ahead and eat.
But he knows where the camera is.
So many questions, Caroline. Like, when's the last
so
time he washed
good.
his hands? Like, I, like fingers that close to my mouth from somebody I don't know. It's fingers that close to my mouth from somebody I do know. Might be a reason we don't have a second date. But like, particularly on a
It's
football field.
2025. Men can feed other men dubs.
I don't like men. People can't put fingers in other people's mouths. So Caroline,
Feed
like,
your
there's just
friend
there-
a dub.
Okay. You know
Add
what?
that to your to-do list today. Maybe ask yourself, when was the last time I fed my friend a dub?
I don't.
Jackson Dart's just looking out for Jameis Winston, his mentor, his friend. He looked hungry. I don't even know if I can do that with my hands. How does he do that so easily? There we go.
There is a TV show that I happen to love, Impractical Jokers, and I have over the years become friends with a couple of those guys, and I love them. But there was a punishment a few years ago that was put your fingers in somebody else's mouth, and that was like a punishment. That was a difficult thing to do. Now you got Jackson Dart just over here. Okay. Anyway,
Just feeding dubs left and right.
Yeah. Okay. We need to work on this. There'll be no dub feeding. I'm a Raiders fan. I don't get fed dubs. Let's talk about vibes though. Vibes are everywhere, even for me. All right. So we have Caroline. You have a new index. So we're going to make this a thing for the show because I feel like we all need our power rankings, our way to, statistically rate how things are going. You, my friend, have given this show what it truly needs, the FVI. Tell everybody.
Yes, so all of the smart sports fans out there have their own metrics and their own analytics, the DVOAs, the FPIs, the, LMNOPs. I am not a smart enough sports fan to abide by some of those metrics, I just like to go off of feelings and vibes. So I've invented my own metric for the not as smart sports fans, and that is what I like to call the FVI, the Football Vibes Index. And that has nothing to do with who we think the best teams are going to be. That has nothing to do with where we think certain teams are going to land or end up at the end of the season. It's simply just based off of vibes. On a scale of 1 to 10, how vibey is this team? Are the vibes good going into the season? Are the vibes bad going into the season? Are we just not quite sure what to make of the vibes for the one certain team or another going into the season? So that is what we are here to do. We are here to present the Football Vibe Index for a bunch of teams in the NFL as we kick off the season tonight.
So let's start with, the Giants. All right, the Giants, since we were just talking about being fed dubs, the FVI on the Giants is?
I think the FVI for the Giants is off the charts. Now, that does not mean that I think the Giants are going to be an outstanding football team. Okay? Do not get that twisted. I don't think the Giants are a playoff team this year, but the vibes in New York just feel so good. I mean, we saw it when we were coming into the segment. Jackson Dart feeding Jameis Winston the dub. I think what we saw from Jackson Dart in the preseason made Giants fans really, really optimistic for the future. Now, what Jackson Dart ends up being, that's a TBD. But if we at some point in the middle of this season see Jackson Dart take the starting job because Brian Daboll has seen enough out of him that he feels like he can step into the starting role, then the vibes index is going to be off the charts because finally Giants fans can feel like they have their young quarterback of the future. So again, don't think the Giants are going to be an outstanding football team this year, but the defense, they add Abdul Carter through the draft. Jackson Dart comes in as a backup quarterback. He's learning from Russell Wilson. Jameis Winston always brings the vibes. The vibes are off the charts in New York. They're not quite a 10. A 10 is perfect. The vibes cannot be perfect for a team that I don't think is going to make the playoffs, but they're right up there. They're as good as they can be for a team that's probably not going to be very good. So I'm going to give the FVI for the New York Giants a 9.
Can I just be honest for a second here? I'm a prisoner of the moment right now. And I think one of the biggest turnarounds in vibes that I've felt for an organization all offseason is the Giants. Like, I don't think you're wrong. Like, when you look at the way Daboll just sort of smiles when he's talking about Jackson Dart, and I think they think they got their guy. And when you think you've got your quarterback of the future, and you also got, I think, the best player in the entire draft in Abdul Carter. So now you put those two things together, man, on a defensive line that was already scary. I don't know. Maybe it's just the things feel different, but man, this just feels like the Giants are going to take a step that I didn't anticipate. If you'd asked me 3-4 months ago, my prediction for the Giants would have been, well, they're going to be competing for the top pick in next year's draft. Daboll's gone at the end of the season because they don't like to fire in season. But we know by week 6 or 7 that it's over and we're just watching dead man walking. I feel the complete opposite right now. And you're right. It's just a vibe. It's just you watch Abdul Carter and you say, man, this defense is going to keep games kind of ugly enough. And then you see Jackson Dart play a little bit above his skis for where we expected. And all of a sudden I'm looking at the Giants saying, why not New York? Why can't they take a big step forward? I'm all in. The vibes are a 9, which has my expectations going from like a 2 to maybe a 6 or a 7 for the Giants, which is a big step forward from where I was. Can I get on the FVI fun? Now can I give you a team that needs... How about we do a little FVI on my beloved Raiders? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm excited. Like, usually I come into week 1 really, really hesitant and knowing that, my team's going to win 6 games and it's going to be just a miserable season. I don't think the Raiders are going to be a great team. I think they're probably a 7-win team. But the vibes feel immaculate. Like watching Pete Carroll go around and just wrestle people, watching just the joy that everybody seems to be having. Like Jacoby Myers in the contract situation needs to work itself out. But just the vibes when you've got Ashton, Jeanty, sort of with the expectations are, and everybody understands at this point that Brock Bowers has a chance to be one of the best players in the league. Max Crosby is still playing like Max Crosby, right? Like, and then you bring to that the joy that comes with the way Pete Carroll is approaching everything today. Like, just from vibes, I don't remember being this just palpably excited to see what a season looks like in a long time. Again, I don't think the Raiders are going to be a playoff team, but I do think they're going to be a hell of a lot closer to that than they have been in several years. Yeah, vibes are a 10 right now. Pete Carroll walking around on the sideline. Look, I'll say it now. I'll say it tomorrow. The Raiders are going to thump the Patriots on Sunday. I stand by that. I believe in this team being able to compete with a lot of the teams across the AFC. They're not at the upper level. They're not a playoff team, but the vibes are a 10.
The vibes do feel good in Vegas. They really do. And it is crazy what having competence at the head coaching position can do for the vibes. Like, that is where we were at with the Raiders. Like, the bar was literally on the floor. We couldn't even play limbo with how low the bar was. But now Pete Carroll comes in, and now all of a sudden it's fair to have trust in, the brain trust at the top of who's calling shots in Vegas. So just that alone. And then you add Geno Smith, and I don't think he's an elite quarterback by any means, but he's a competent quarterback. And you have Brock Bowers, who I think is one of the most exciting young offensive players in the league. You add Ashton Jeanty, who I think has a case for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And you add in Chip Kelly, an offensive coordinator that loves to run the football, and you pair him with the best running back in college football last season, who had a very strong Heisman case last season. Like, all of these pieces put together feel like the Raiders are poised for a step forward. It at least feels like there's a strong foundation for this team. Now, what that comes across in the wins and loss column, I don't know. I don't know. Like you said, sure, they kind of feel like a 7 or 8 win football team, but just the competence with the Raiders is not something that we get, at least on a consistent basis. So I'm with you. The vibes feel high in Vegas, but where I think the vibes could maybe feel a little awkward, the vibes feel a little off, the most boom or bust potential for vibes, or at least up there for the most boom or bust potential for vibes, is Cincinnati. I give the FBI in Cincinnati like a 6, right? They'd be way lower had Trey Hendrickson not gotten that raise for the upcoming season. But Trey Hendrickson also didn't participate in a majority of training camp. Just because you give Trey Hendrickson that raise doesn't make the defense better. So, but it's better than not having Trey Hendrickson. And obviously the vibes are going to be great offensively in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I think Joe Burrow, at least preseason, could have a very strong case. If, Joe Burrow is your MVP pick on September 4th, I think you have a very strong case for that. If Jamar Chase is your offensive player of the year pick today on September 4th, I think you have a very strong case for that. So the Bengals are always going to have the vibes offensively because Joe Burrow is always going to be bringing the vibes. But overall, as a team, the vibes feel a little off, but the vibes could go, through the roof if the defense is just like 10% better, Fitzy.
Yeah, I think to your point, you said earlier the Raiders vibes are, because you have competent, right? And what we have to acknowledge is vibes so often and expectations come based on where a team has been and where we expect them to go. So if you've been a dormant franchise, just the ability to be competent makes vibes high. If you're a team that's perceived to be in the Super Bowl conversation and all you are is competent, then the vibes are low. I can't get out of my head what we saw in quarterback of Joe Burrow. Like, he seemed like a tortured soul last season, living through what they lived through with the Bengals, right? Like, it just seemed like, because you mentioned, I've interviewed Joe a few times in my career, and he usually has sort of a quiet joy to him, though, and watching last year, watching that quarterback show, it just seemed like he had a quiet sadness for everything that was happening, a quiet heaviness to all of it. And so I'm with you. I think your score of 6 for vibes is generous for the Bengals right now. I would be wildly concerned if I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan about what the morale will be early on, what the morale will be if this defense just sucks. Like, if the Bengals go in and they look bad in week 1 against the Browns, all of a sudden we've got, it's the same old Bengals. That's the conversation that will happen again and again. And I would worry about what it means for the vibes in general. We're just getting rolling when it comes to the vibe index because, I don't know, there's 2 teams playing tonight that people will have all eyes on. What are the vibes around some of your other favorite teams? We'll tell you next on Yahoo Sports Daily. One team that made a strong play this summer to try to trade for all-pro linebacker Micah Parsons was none other than the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles called the Cowboys to see if they could acquire Parsons and bring him back to Pennsylvania, but the Cowboys had no interest in trading Parsons in the division, especially to the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles, whom they open with tonight. That from Adam Schefter this morning as we walk through vibes. But Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. I mean, I respect it. One league insider said to me years ago, everybody has to make calls, right? Everybody has to make calls. But the minute Jerry Jones sees Howie Roseman's phone number come up, you just hang up the phone, right? Like, there is zero chance that you are making any trade that sends Micah to the Eagles, right?
Well, I think whether you're Jerry, whether you're Mickey Loomis, whether you are, any general manager in the National Football League, if I see Howie Roseman's name pop up on my phone, ignore. No, you're not getting anything. You're not getting what I have because you already have enough. And what do they say? The rich only get richer. That's exactly what that would have been if the Eagles traded for Micah Parsons. And let's just say, because, we don't know for certain that the asking price for the Eagles would have been the same as the asking price for the Packers. But, can you imagine the Eagles? They don't need 2 first-round picks over the next 2 years. Their team is stacked. Their team is loaded. It would be the most no-brainer trade, at least for the Eagles, like in NFL history. Now, I don't think that there is any way even Jerry, the old crazy coot, would have traded Micah Parsons to the Philadelphia Eagles. There is just absolutely no way. As angry and pissed off as Cowboys fans were after Micah got traded to the Packers, multiply that by like 100 if it was the Eagles. So no matter what the price would have been, even if the Eagles were willing to give 4 first-round picks, I still think that that's a move that Jerry Jones would be very, very hard-pressed to make. But just the idea of Micah Parsons in an Eagles uniform, it gets me a little excited. I know it makes Cowboys fans sick to their stomachs, but can you just imagine Micah Parsons on that team? Unfair, Fitz. Totally and completely unfair.
There's no comparable trade I can think of simply because I'm not sure the Eagles have a slightly over-the-hill run defender that doesn't do much else that they could send in return. Shade to the trade. But ultimately, I guess Jerry should have traded him because then maybe the Cowboys could run the ball tonight on the Eagles. I'm just throwing shade everywhere. My vibes are a 10. I don't know what I'm doing here. Let's get to the vibe index on these two teams that are playing tonight. That's right, tonight, Thursday Night Football, Week 1. We are underway. We've got Cowboys, Eagles. So let's start with the Eagles, defending Super Bowl champions. The vibes on Philly right now?
10, 11, 12. The Eagles are breaking the vibes index. How could they not be, the best vibes in the NFL? They just won a Super Bowl, and they did it in very dramatic fashion. When was the last time we saw a Super Bowl won by that margin? When was the last time we saw a team put their backups in the Super Bowl? So the Philadelphia Eagles are riding the high of that, and they return this year with largely the same core. The offensive line, of course, there's a little bit of shakeup there, but you still have Lane Johnson, one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. You still have your starting quarterback. You still have your coordinators. You still have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You still have Saquon Barkley. You still have that majority of that nasty defense that was last season. You lose Josh Sweat, but I don't think anybody feels like if you take away Josh Sweat, the Philadelphia Eagles are a completely different football team. So they won the Super Bowl last year. They're coming back and playing a divisional rival. I don't know what the spread is in that game tonight, but I would have to think that, the Eagles are a favorable favorite. The sizable favorite, I think is the word. The Eagles, I think, are poised to make a trip right back to the Super Bowl and run the table in the NFC. The vibes are off the charts in Philly. Not even Santa can rain on their parade.
That right now, BetMGM has the Eagles as an 8-point favorite from what I can find right here, 8.5 in some other places. So a pretty sizable favorite for Philadelphia. And you're right. I think the other reason the vibes are high is because if you're Sirianni and you want this team to focus on this season being a new season, you got all the ammunition you needed because nobody's talking about you. And I genuinely mean that. I think the concept of, well, nobody's talking about us is usually overblown and kind of stupid. But think about it. Even today, as I got up this morning and I was watching ESPN, the conversation was, what does Dak have to do tonight to beat the Eagles? It's never about Philadelphia. It's wild to me that the defending Super Bowl champions are just simply forgotten. And last time I checked, your point is an incredibly valid one about everybody that's returning. And also the tuck rule, good God. The push tush is also returning,
tush
right?
push.
So, yeah, there we go. The brotherly shove. We're going to go all over this. I'm going to call it everything. There's still a 4-down team. There's still a 4-down team throughout the course of the entire season. So, not even the rule changes that some cowards wanted to implement were done. So the Eagles are still clearly, I think, the class of the NFC, and they're forgotten in the process. So the vibes are a 10. The vibes are low for me for Dallas. And I want to be clear here, Caroline. I don't think Dallas is going to be a bad football team. So before everybody ats me, I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are going to be a bad football team. But I think the vibes around Dallas are tragically bad. They're going to have to win through the bad vibes they have. If we're giving this football team a vibe score, it's a 3 for me right now. Between trading Micah and the conversation around their coach and everything else, it's a 3.
I wrote down a 2 before we came into this segment. The vibes are low. I don't think Dallas is going to be a bad football team. I don't think they're going to be like New Orleans Saints, New York Jets bad. But I also don't think that Dallas is going to do anything of substance. I mean, I think as long as you have CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, I think that the addition of George Pickens is perfect for what they were looking for as kind of like a stretch the field receiver. You're not going to be so bad when you have that level of talent. But what does Dallas's run game look like? What does Dallas look like under Brian Schottenheimer, which I think to all of us, we can all agree was an incredibly underwhelming hire? What does this defense look like without Micah Parsons? You just eliminated double-digit sacks when you traded away Micah Parsons. So how in the world are you supposed to replace that? So no, I'm with you. I don't think they're going to be awful, terrible. I don't think they're going to have a top 10 pick next year. But I also don't think the Dallas Cowboys are going to wow anybody. The Dallas Cowboys are quickly turning into one of those teams that I just don't really care about watching. Those boring teams that's just, I don't want to watch this for the next 3.5 hours. That's the Cowboys. Can you imagine telling the 1993 version of yourself that the Cowboys are a boring team to watch? So the vibes are bad. I think the locker room has every right to be confused and angry and just honestly just frustrated with the direction of this franchise. The vibes of the fans are bad. The vibes of the players are bad. The vibes in the front office is bad. All around is just a big fat doo-doo of vibes in Dallas.
Big fat doo-doo of vibes in Dallas is the most honest thing that you've ever heard about the Dallas Cowboys, and it was said right here by Carolyn Faye.
Make that a headline.
That is absolute
They don't call me
perfection.
Shakespeare for nothing.
Well, that's a fact. Let's go to another team where the vibes got a lot better last night. San Francisco, the 49ers, and for anyone that missed it, Juwan Jennings and the 49ers agreed to a new deal late Wednesday night. He can earn some extra money. He can now earn up to $10.5 million this year. Essentially, they put some incentives on his contract to help the man get paid, and now he has a chance to get more of a bag. As Inside Coverage said last night, and I think it's important, 2 things can be true. Juwan Jennings dealing with a bit of a calf issue. The question was he going to play? And people were saying, is it calf or is it contract? Maybe it was both. So now we at least know that the contract portion has been solved. So let's see what it looks like for the calf portion on it. So Juwan Jennings reaches some sort of at least a resolution with the 49ers, which does uptick their vibe a little bit to me, Caroline.
Mm-hmm. It does. Last night when we were preparing the show, I put the 49ers at a 5. I don't think that this makes the vibes overwhelmingly higher, but it does make it higher at least a little bit. You always love when one of your guys gets paid or at least comes to some sort of resolution. I think Juwan Jennings is one of the more underrated pieces on that team. I put the 49ers, though, at a 5 on the vibes index because that is right smack dab in the middle. That if the 49ers can stay healthy, which is a big if with this team, if they can stay healthy, the 49ers will make a run in the playoffs. The 49ers are Super Bowl contenders when everyone is healthy because we've seen it. But we also don't know how healthy this team is going to be able to be. So it's it can go either way. I talked about the Cincinnati Bengals being such a boom or bust team on the Football Vibes Index because it really depends on how upgraded that defense could really be. I think the 49ers are also a very boom or bust kind of vibes team because it can go one way or another. They've been incredibly Jekyll and Hyde under Kyle Shanahan. When they're healthy, they're one of the best teams in the league. When they're not, they're going to have a top 12 pick.
That's the hardest part for me of this because I'm looking at it right now. in Kyle Shanahan's time as the head coach, I think people are surprised by this, and they don't really realize this. In Kyle Shanahan's time as a head coach, he has lost double-digit games as a head coach 4 times. Like, that's not an insignificant number. And injuries is a part of it. I understand that. And it's just the way it goes. And when you've gone to Super Bowls, you get a little bit of extra grace. But the boom or bust portion of the 49ers is substantial. And right now, I think the only grade I can give the 49ers for coming into this season is just sort of an incomplete. I don't know. I think your number of 5 is kind of right, because I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers are healthy and they're very good. I also wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers are just sort of mid. Like, I believe in Brock Purdy, and I think paying Brock Purdy was the right answer. So I'm glad we can close that chapter. But that doesn't change the fact that there's still a lot of things that have to go right for the 49ers to be the best version of themselves, not the least of which is getting Christian McCaffrey for a full season. And God only knows if that's ever going to happen at this point. So there are just enough question marks to me to at least press pause on the 49ers coming into this season, which is far different. Usually, again, this comes back to expectations, right? Usually when we come into a season, because we have such high expectations for some teams, just being pretty good has the vibes kind of low. Like, I think the 49ers are a 9 or 10 win football team, which for a lot of teams is plenty good to give everybody a lot of excitement. I just don't think the 49ers, as they are constructed right now, as we sit today, week 1, I don't think they're in the same tier as the Eagles or the Lions or the Packers. And you start going up and down this list, even with the Lions taking a step back. You start going up and down the list. I just think the 49ers are not in the same class and category that they're usually in. Therefore, I think your rating of a 5 is a good one.
Do you think 9 or 10 wins them the division?
I think the Rams win the division. I think the 49ers are playing for second place in this division. I'm clearly all in on the Rams to win the NFC West. I believe, especially if Stafford is healthy throughout the course of the year. But I mean, look, I don't feel comfortable betting my mortgage at a roulette table. I don't feel comfortable betting my mortgage on Matt Stafford's back, and I don't feel comfortable betting my mortgage on Christian McCaffrey's health. So there's a but on all of those teams. I will take the combo that I think is the best out of all of them, which is the Rams. The way the Rams were playing at the end of the season last year transfers over. What about you?
I think 10 wins can do it. 10 wins, obviously, maybe not obviously, but I think 10 wins definitely gets them at least a wild card spot.
Sure.
I'm just so concerned about Matthew Stafford's back. And look, there's plenty of concern on the 49ers front in terms of injury, but I'm so concerned about the quarterback position. We've said it so many times. 37 years old and a back problem. Those are 2 things that do not get along very well. That is oil and water. Matthew Stafford is one tough son of a mother, but the back issue just gives me pause. But I am going to pick the 49ers to win the division, but it is the Rams or 49ers, right? Like it's those 2. And I think the other still gets a wild card spot no matter what. What is the football vibe index in Green Bay? It's not as high as it is in Philadelphia, but dare we say it is one step below the FBI for the Eagles.
9.5? I mean, you just traded for Micah? 9.5. It's 9.5.
It's high. It's a 9.5. It's 9. Like you know, the Packers were a solid team last year. You add Micah Parsons, even with the question with the back, the vibes are still high. You're right in that high.
Yeah, the vibes are higher for the Packers than they are for any other team in their own division. I will say that confidently. And the
For
Packers
sure.
are my pick to win their division. Look at that. We're getting you picks and previews throughout the course of the day because it is the opening day of the NFL season. But there's other news out there absolutely exploding. Angel Reese made some comments that have absolutely caused chaos in Chicago. We'll tell you about them next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Quote, I'd like to be here for my career, but if things don't pan out, obviously, I might have to move in a different direction and do what's best for me. That's Angel Reese speaking to the Chicago Tribune in an article that became scathing as she commented on the fact that she wants to play with stars, that a coach needs to be tougher on the roster as it exists, and that there's not enough talent around her. A quote that then got back to her, an article that got back to her teammates, and her teammates reacted as such, that caused Angel Reese to then go in and talk to her team. And even in her apology, Angel Reese came out and said, I don't think I'm frustrated. I'm probably just frustrated at myself right now. I think the language is taken out of context. I want to apologize to my teammates. She also said she didn't intentionally mean to put down any teammates. Caroline, I just don't even know how to process this when you do an article with the Chicago Tribune and you sit there and say that you are surrounded by players that you don't think are good enough and that you may have to go somewhere else to have better talent around you. And then even in your apology, instead of just saying, yeah, I let my emotion get the best of me and I said some things I shouldn't have. Stop. End of apology. Instead, it becomes, it was taken out of context, and I don't think they got what I mean. Read the quotes. Like, there's very little you can take out of context when you're sitting there talking about you don't have enough talent around you, and you're currently on a team with people that will read that. Caroline, I don't know what Angel Reese expects or why she consistently, when she does say things that are controversial, why she consistently goes to blame everybody but herself for just misusing the platform that she has.
Yeah, I understand if she's saying that wasn't her intention, but that's how it came across. And when you are somebody with a platform like Angel Reese has, when she is the face of that organization, you have to understand the impact of your words. And I will say that about any athlete, especially an athlete that is, become the face of a league or the face of a franchise, which is exactly what Angel Reese is in Chicago. And look, Angel Reese is a lightning rod. Whatever she says, whatever she does gets reaction. Some of that is created from her own doing because she does say sometimes some very dramatic things. Sometimes part of that is just the court of public opinion. That no matter what she says, no matter what she does, people are going to hate her for it. Whether you think that's right or wrong or unfair or indifferent, it is what it is. Now, looking at some of the quotes that Angel Reese said, some of the things I don't disagree with her. She said, quote, I'm not settling for the same stuff, I'll use a PG word there, we did this year. We have to get good players. We have to get great players. That's a non-negotiable for me. I'm willing and wanting to play with the best. And however I can help to get the best here, that's what I'm going to do this offseason. Now, there's some things that I agree with there, and there's some things that I absolutely do not agree with there. She's saying, I'm not settling for the same stuff we did this year. Chicago is one of the worst teams in the W. Good. You shouldn't be settling for those things. I have no problem with Angel Reese calling out her team and saying, we have to do better. I want to do better. But for her to say that we need to get better players, you can't say that publicly. If you want to have that conversation behind closed doors with management and say, look, we need to upgrade talent here, here, and here, and this is how I think we can do that, that's fine. But going on the record and basically calling out your teammates and saying they're not good enough, I think is such a bad look. But I think it's a good thing that Angel Reese is pissed off that they're not good enough. She should be. She is a competitor. I think if she said, however I can help the team get there versus however I can help to get the best here. I think that's showing, hey, look, I want to do whatever I can as a leader on this team to make this team better versus it's your job to get better better players in here. She also said it's going to be very, very important this offseason to make sure that we attract the best of the best because we can't settle for what we have this year. Again, the sentiment I agree with. We have to get better. We can't keep doing the same things that we were doing. But the messaging feels very anti-team versus we want to be better in in next season.
There are quotes from this article. When she was asked about Courtney Vandersloot, she said she doesn't think she's capable of returning at the age she's at. We need someone probably a little younger with some experience, somebody who's been playing in the game, willing to compete for a championship, has done it before. She's attacking a teammate, whether she sees it that way or not. She called out other teammates as not being good enough specifically. And Caroline, look, anyone that's ever been in a relationship, you know this. If the girl that you're dating walks in and she's wearing a dress that looks terrible and you say, oh, my God, you look fat. Well, then if she gets her feelings hurt and you turn around and say, I'm sorry if my comment hurt your feelings, what'd you expect it to do? That's my problem here is that once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, how many times has this happened where Angel comes out afterwards and says essentially she was mischaracterized or misquoted or people are demonizing her? I don't want any of those things. I think Angel Reese is great for the WNBA. I think it's important that she continue to build up it as a star. The more stars, the better. I think this is important. I love Angel Reese being part of the game. We can admit that. Stop point. Say, I support everything that Angel's trying to do. Stop point. New point. I think Angel absolutely misuses her microphone all the time. And instead of ever A, learning from it, or B, coming out and trying to do better, or C, just taking the easy path. Learn how to do coach speak. Learn how to just not say anything. That's what most athletes do for a reason. Instead of doing any of that, she gets quoted directly in an article in the Chicago Tribune and then turns around and says, well, I think they really mischaracterized the tone of what I'm saying. I'm sorry, Caroline. You and I have worked together for a while. If you turn around and you go to a media publication and you trash my ability, I don't care how that's going to be characterized. That's going to make me feel some kind of way. And I have every right as your teammate to come in and say, what in the hell are you doing? Her teammates have every right, and she can stand up and apologize for it. She can apologize to her coach, who she also questioned the article, his approach. He's had to answer questions about that. Now you have everybody sitting at a microphone answering questions about Angel Reese. And instead of just for once, for the love of God, standing up and saying, boy, did I screw that up. Angel Reese did what Angel Reese always does. Yeah, I screwed it up, but not really my fault. Yeah, it is. It is your fault. And at some point, I don't want Angel Reese to be the villain because it's a tiring stereotype that we're doing through all of this. It's exhausting. I want Angel Reese to be appreciated. But how do we ever appreciate Angel Reese if she can't just say, I'm sorry, and stop?
Yeah, and understanding the impact of your words, understanding that you can get a message across without being accusatory and without throwing other people under the bus. Because I do wonder what the front office feels, how the front office feels, because it's not only the fact that Angel Reese is saying these things, it's in the middle of the season. Like there's still time left in the regular season in the W. So it's the fact that she's saying these things, period. And that is bad enough. But also, I don't have the schedule pulled up in front of me. The Chicago's guy probably play, at some point from now until Sunday. Like they're going to have to be in a locker room and getting ready and game plan and play a game with all of this kind of hovering over their heads, with all of these players thinking, well, I mean, like Angel's the star on this team. She called us out. Am I going to be here a week from now? Do I have a job a week from now? So I do wonder how the front office feels about this, how the front office is going to proceed. Because whether you like Angel Reese or not, there's plenty of people that don't. That's your own prerogative. Angel Reese is an outstanding player. Like Angel Reese is a top 10 player in the WNBA, and there's no way that you can slice or dice it and argue any way differently. So how does Chicago proceed? A team that has underachieved, a team that historically their star players have called them out. Candace Parker has kind of called the franchise out. Sylvia Fowles has kind of called the franchise out of falling short of expectations. What does the organization and how does the front office proceed with this? I'm not absolving Angel Reese of blame Anyway, in the slightest, that's not the point that I'm making. I do wonder, where do you go next from here? How do you try and kind of put this PR fire out and proceed and actually be a contending team in the future?
They played last night. 18 points, 13 boards for Angel Reese. She was absolutely dominant. They beat a terrible Connecticut Sun team. Like that is this is the thing with Angel. And like, you get what you get. You're going to get a player that can absolutely dominate the boards. You're going to absolutely get you're going to get somebody that is a powerful impact player in the paint for this league. There's no doubt about it. But you're also going to get everything else, because it should be noted that she got a technical foul last night. What does that mean from the technical foul? Well, she's now eclipsed the limit, which means she's going to be suspended for their next game. Now, they're appealing it to try and get the foul reversed, but yet again, she's had enough technicals that she's going to be suspended for their next game, which would be against the Fever. Like, these are the sorts of games that the league scheduled. Look, I know we don't have Caitlin right now, and we all understand that, but these are the games that were scheduled for a reason. They were scheduled to be these absolute moments. And in every single sport, I don't care if we're talking about men's or women's, I don't care what sport we're talking about, there is a what is the wins above replacement for all of it. Is it worth the drama is a question that is constantly asked. And as great as Angel is on the court, I think there's a real question of if the toxicity that comes with the media coverage and with the teammate is actually worth it, especially when you're calling your teammates out that way. It's Thursday. It's Thursday night football. We have a ton to get to in hour number 2, including, I don't know, a superstar guest going to join us. But coming back, bounce back week needed. We'll see who's going to be able to feast on cupcakes next on Yahoo Sports Daily. Welcome back to hour number 2 of Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We have got a stacked hour on a celebratory Thursday. I don't know that there'll be a Thursday for the rest of the year that will feel better than this one, because it's the first Thursday of the NFL season. Plenty of football that we will get into this hour as we prepare for the joy down in our hearts that we feel right now. But Caroline Fenton, let's start this hour like we start every hour with 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
Yeah, not a whole lot of joy down in the hearts of Boston Red Sox fans, because their young phenom Roman Anthony is on the IL and could potentially be out for the remainder of the season. Their rookie was placed on the 10-day injured list on Wednesday with what they're calling a left oblique strain. He's only 21 years old, but he was injured in a game against the Guardians, hurting himself while striking out, which That's got to be, the worst part of a strikeout. You strike out and then you also get hurt. Brutal. There's no timetable currently for his return, but Alex Cora, Red Sox manager, said that players are typically sidelined for 4 to 6 weeks with the type of oblique strain that Roman Anthony has suffered. So going into Wednesday's game against Cleveland, Boston was 2.5 games back of the AL East leading Toronto Blue Jays. They were also in position for the second AL wildcard spot. So the Boston Red Sox are absolutely making a push for the postseason, but what does this team look like without Roman Anthony, who has absolutely just set, all of Boston on fire? The city loves him. The city absolutely adores him, Fitzy.
Yeah, I can only imagine that Red Sox fans, who are known for being just patient and fine and everything's working out just the way it should be. Yeah, level-headed. That's how I often describe what it's like going to a bar during a baseball game in New England. All right, we'll get you updates as we get more on that. But first point on my mind, got a little bit of U.S. Open update for you. Naomi Osaka can't be Ostapta. You're welcome, America. I came up with that myself. She kept her U.S. Open run going by way of a straight sets win over Karolina Muchova, 6-4, 7-6. That's on Wednesday night. Now, the 23rd seeded superstar is 5-0 in major quarterfinal matches. In fact, fun fact you didn't know you needed, every time she's made it this far in a major, she wins the whole damn thing. So the Australian Open in 2021 is the last time she even made it to the fourth round of any tournament before the U.S. Open. And this one particularly special, obviously, given it's the first time she's been seeded at a major since giving birth to her daughter back in July of 2023. Maternity leave and then working herself back in. This has been a particularly special tournament for her, which she even addressed. She mentioned after the match that she was surprised she wasn't in tears because the emotion has been consistent throughout this entire process for her. And frankly, I think we were all crying tears of joy. She's only lost one set this entire tournament. She now has 6 straight tour-level wins over WTA top 20 ranked opponents. That ties the longest win streak of her career. And back in action with semis tonight. So Naomi Osaka continues to just captivate us all, and we continue to watch it, wishing her the best of luck as the tournament continues. Now, we get to our top point, and it's cupcakes. All right, it is the season for cupcake feasting, and I'm in for it. I do love a good cupcake, Caroline Fenton. Most importantly, I want a lot of frosting on my cupcake, not a little frosting. Like I want an uncomfortable amount of frosting where you have to take the top off, you set it off to the side, you eat the bottom just because you want to get your vegetables in, and then you get to the portion that you really like, which is the frosting on the top. Again,
See,
I was a fat
I'm not
kid.
a huge cupcake girly. I'd rather have a muffin. Which everybody says that muffins are just like sad cupcakes, but like I would rather have a muffin. Honestly.
I would rather just eat a tub of cream cheese frosting by itself, like just the tub of the frosting with the spoon. You take that out of the fridge and I'm telling you.
See, like the canned frosting or like the just frosting that you get at the store, it all smells like feet. That's why I can't do it. Frosting's not my thing.
Like you and Dylan have better smelling feet than I do. That's what I learned. Because if my feet smelled like cream cheese frosting, I try and eat my feet every day. Okay, let's take a look at some cupcake matchups. I am just trying to make everybody uncomfortable today. Let's take a look at cupcake matchups in college football week 2 because we're going to smash them. So we're going to give you a scale on how many cupcakes here. So we're going to go 1 through 5 on week 2 college football cupcakes and how much smashing of the cupcake needs to happen for us to feel better about a team that laid a clunker last week. So the more cupcakes you smash, the better we will feel. That's what we're insisting on. We want to see a lot of cupcakes if we need a lot of smashing to get the taste out of our mouth. Scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the maximum cupcake allottage. Okay, so Caroline Fenton, we've got University of Louisiana Monroe taking on Bama. The number of cupcakes that you need to see smashed is?
Yeah, let's go back to 2007, shall we? A man named Nick Saban was the coach of Alabama, and they lost 2-1 UL Monroe. So I know that Alabama fans are just absolutely swimming in the sea of misery after getting clapped by Florida State last week. And I think they all look at this game like, time is a flat circle. We do know that. I don't think history will repeat itself, though. This Alabama team is just way too good to lose to this Louisiana Monroe team. No disrespect to ULM. But it has to be like 10 smashing cupcakes. It has to be like 15. It breaks the scale of the number of cupcakes that Alabama needs to smash ULM by. And even then, like if Alabama smashes ULM by 50 plus. It's still not going to change my mind about this Alabama team. Like, good for you. You went out and you did what you were supposed to do. I still can't get week 1 out of my mind. Still can't get the bad taste of losing to that Florida State team that won 2 games last year out of my mouth. So Alabama just needs to avoid disaster. Alabama needs to go out there and they need to absolutely trounce Louisiana Monroe. They need to make it feel like old times when everybody leaves after the first quarter because Bama's up by 17 touchdowns. That's what they need to do. Anything less than that, and it is going to absolutely be panic time in Alabama. But honestly, Fitz, even still, even then, even if Alabama 10 cupcakes worth smashes ULM, they're still the team that lost to Florida State in week 1, and it's still the coach that has lost to 4 unranked teams in one season in one game.
Yeah, cupcakes are for closers. Alabama didn't close. You don't get any cupcakes, right? You don't get them. You get to sit there and watch the rest of the class and eat the cupcakes. There's no cupcakes for you. Not you. Not you, Fat Jesus. You don't get any of the cupcakes. You're right. There's no number of cupcakes that are going to make us feel better about Alabama. What about, let's say Texas? Texas is taking on San Jose State University. So I'll tell you this. To me, this one feels 36.5. It's about the same point spread. But, man, I think this is still a 5 cupcake smasher. I need to see Arch Manning actually hit people wide open when they're wide open. The inaccuracy, throwing to the wrong shoulder high and late, just happened a bunch on those crossing routes. That's stuck in my head. I need to see Texas go out and make it look easy for a minute. I believe they will. And everything's going to be fine with Texas. They're not going to play a defense like Ohio State again for a very long time this season. They'll be fine. But, man, if Arch goes out there and misses some guys wide open, you can't tell me that we won't be having some panic conversation about his accuracy issues from week 1.
I think that everyone is being really tough on Arch Manning. To be fair, Arch Manning went out there and did not look good. To be fair, did not look good against the number 3 team in the country that won the national championship last year and one of the most overwhelming places to play in all of college football. I also don't think Steve Sarkisian and his play calling did Arch Manning any sort of favors. I mean, they ran a QB sneak at the goal line. Why don't you have your running back do that? Let's just say if Texas finds themselves in the end zone on that play, then maybe we're talking about a different team. Maybe we're talking about a different game. Maybe we're talking about Arch Manning a little bit differently. Maybe we're saying, man, he was pretty inaccurate, but they still found a way to win. So, yes, I agree with you that we want to see Arch Manning take those steps forward. We want to see Texas, a team that I at least view as a playoff contender. We want to see them go out and take care of business against a team that they should take care of business against. But let's just pump the brakes on Arch Manning a little bit. It is like the sky is falling in Austin. He's a first-year starter. Just because his last name is Manning doesn't mean he has to look like one on his very first game as the Texas starters. Maybe let's just pump the brakes a little bit. Everybody, breathe a little bit. I know we don't do that very often in college football. We don't have measured approaches. We don't give people time. But let's just do that. Let's just remind ourselves things take time a little bit, okay? You don't make Thanksgiving dinner in a microwave.
Well, Thanksgiving food's trash, so it wouldn't be any worse. I do think
Facts.
With this show has been pretty balanced on, hey, Arch is going to need some time. It's just you still have to win these games convincingly. You got to look
totally.
a certain level. Like I wasn't surprised by the struggle of week 1. I think we've been consistent on that. I won't be overreacting when he comes out and has a 18-20 game for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Right? I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him absolutely light it up. Let's go to one that's in your backyard, because I love the idea of you going and just popping open some cupcakes, standing on the sideline and just asking, a certain somebody if she wants a cupcake too. You have North Carolina taking on Charlotte, UNC a 13.5-point favorite. So how many cupcakes need to be smashed by the Fighting Belichicks to make any of us feel better about them?
Jordan Hudson and I are just going to crack open a nice little package of cupcakes and just be best friends together at this one. It's going to be really lovely. It's going to be very nice. It's definitely not the same scale as Texas. It's definitely not the same scale as Alabama, because I don't think we had the same expectations on North Carolina that we did those programs. I think it's still like a 3. North Carolina still needs to smash them, probably in the same vein that they got smashed from TCU in their first game of the season. It's just not the same because I don't have the same expectations for this team. And frankly, I don't think that we should have very high expectations for this team. I get it. It's Bill Belichick. It's the greatest coach of all time. He's in Canton, blah, 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 blah. We can talk about that all day long, but this still isn't a very good roster. We've seen so many stories come out about how hectic and chaotic and frankly, not very fun it was to work under Bill Belichick while he was recruiting. I mean, their starting quarterback is between a guy who broke his leg last year and almost lost his leg. It was a brutal injury last season for Max Johnson, and Gio Lopez, who was the starting quarterback at South Alabama last year. Like, that's what we're working with in North Carolina. So they still need to win. They still need to win big. And if they don't, it will be absolute pandemonium in Chapel Hill. They still need to. They still need to. So it's like 3 cupcake smashing worth.
It's only a 13.5-point line. So they got to cover. I'll say this. They got to cover for everybody to be like, win by the amount you should win by, and everybody will calm down. If this is a 3-point win, people are not going to calm down. And if it's a loss, then my God, if we see a dashingly good-looking older gentleman on the sideline suddenly playing quarterback for North Carolina, we'll just wonder if Brady got some eligibility back somehow. Okay, what about if anybody could? It's terrific, Tom. What about Troy versus Clemson? I'm going to give you a shocking take here. Troy versus Clemson. Clemson's favored by 33.5. This is a 1 cupcake game for me. I honestly, I don't know how Clemson doesn't have a little bit of a letdown after last week, but I also don't think that Clemson played particularly poorly last week. There's a difference between Alabama, which showed an absolute lack of effort, for example, or Texas, which showed a lack of accuracy for Arch Manning. I don't know that I walked away from the Clemson game with a glaring, oh my God, Clemson has to fix this right now or their season sits on the brink. I think they'll take care of business and they'll be fine against Troy. But even if this is a 2-touchdown game, I just am not going to panic about Clemson because I don't think the week 1 loss gave us any reason to panic.
Oh, I don't know if I agree on that, though. Because I agree. After that LSU Clemson game, I thought those are 2 playoff teams. Like Clemson can still get back right where they want to be because we saw it last year. I mean, Clemson got their booties kicked by Georgia in week 1. Then Clemson figured it out. They have the luxury of playing a less than intimidating ACC schedule. Like, Clemson is going to be fine. But I think that they still need to remind themselves and they still need to remind that fan base that they are still Clemson. Like, this is still the team that's going to run the table in the ACC, and this is still a team that's going to find themselves in the college football playoff. And the best way to do that is covering a 30-plus point spread against Troy. But as somebody, you see that helmet behind me, as somebody who suffered a loss to that Troy team just a few years ago, don't overlook them, okay? Do not overlook them, because I remember a buyout GoFundMe being started for Coach O's buyout after LSU lost to Troy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the risk you take in a week 2 cupcake, especially if you played a week 1 big game. Like, because sometimes, I know it's rare, but sometimes these cupcake games go the wrong way. And, man, you want to talk about, like, absolute panic? Like, go back to Louisiana Monroe. If somehow they do the unthinkable and they beat Bama, we will be talking on Monday and Tuesday about the buyout situation and how quickly they can get out of Kalen DeBoer. Like, there's no wiggle room. So it's funny you mentioned Troy with LSU because that is the risk all of these teams we've taken. Like, if North Carolina loses to Charlotte, the entire tone around the Tar Heels season will absolutely change. And that there's fact around that. Like, that's the weird part about most of these. If Troy beats Clemson, the panic will be real. But, like, there are some of these that are, if you lose this game, your coach is going to be not just on the hot seat. Your coach is going to be actively looking for a new job. And it's just, that's the weird risk that we take in this particular week.
And let me just say, I don't think that's going to happen. Like, I think Clemson is going to go out there. They're going to take care of business. They're going to cover that 30-plus point spread. Their backups are going to be in midway of the third quarter if it's that late. Like, I expect a massive win from a very good and very talented Clemson team that just got outmatched in the second half against another very good team in LSU. But that's the name of the game. You can't look past anybody. It's the Nick Saban approach of a nameless, faceless opponent, and that is for a reason. That's how Alabama lost to Vanderbilt last season. That's how so many of these elite programs can get got by some of these cupcake programs, and it's because you don't have a nameless or faceless opponent. But another one, Fitzy, do you know where, quick trivia question here, where is Tarleton State?
I don't know.
A lot of people don't. It is in Texas, but that is the team that beat Army last week. Remember Army? We were talking about Army as being a potential playoff contender last year. Army lost to Tarleton State last week in double overtime, and now Kansas State gets an opportunity for redemption against this Army team. So on the cupcake scale, I'm giving this like 4 cupcakes. Kansas State, in my opinion, does not have the same, Texas expectations, Alabama expectations, Clemson expectations, but this is a Big 12 that is incredibly deep, and Kansas State was at the top of the conversation for being a potential team that could win the Big 12 and get to the college football playoff. It was a really, I think, defeating loss to Iowa State week 0 in Dublin, that it was a very back and forth game, that Kansas State had an opportunity to win it, but it was just mistake after mistake and a gross and muddy and icky and wet field. And I think this is, the opportunity for Kansas State to say, look, we salute our troops. We absolutely love our country, but we're going to 4 cupcake smash you because we need to.
Yeah, that is, you're right. It's funny. Kansas State actually had some expectations, so they got to pick it up quickly. Otherwise, those expectations are going to go awry in a Big 12 that is better than people expect it to be. All right. You know how much we love college football, but it is the kickoff of the NFL season, and that means we need to talk not just about the games, but about the Super Bowl. That's right. Taylor Swift going to be playing the Super Bowl halftime show. I'll tell you why she absolutely shouldn't next on Yahoo Sports Daily. Maybe that is the answer from Roger Goodell when asked about Taylor Swift performing at the NFL halftime show. Maybe is his answer. So you're telling me there's a chance, is the way many people took this. Yahoo Sports Daily, Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. And Caroline, it is rare in my life that I step up and I say, hey, I am an actual expert at something. And it doesn't matter what it is. Like, I've got a bunch of gold and platinum walls, humbly, records on my wall, humbly behind me. I never say I'm an expert on that, even though some would. I will say this. I am an expert on the process with which the NFL goes about deciding who's going to perform. The band I was in for years had the opportunity to, the band Perry, we had the opportunity to play the pregame show at the Fox broadcast of the Super Bowl in New York. And in that process, because I was also part of the management team, I sat in with the NFL and I talked to people about the halftime show process. And what's interesting to me is Taylor Swift comes up every single year because that's what people think. I have to say this loudly and proudly, my friend. I don't think there's any reason that Caroline Fenton, you should. I don't think there's any reason that Taylor Swift should perform the halftime of the Super Bowl at all. She should never do this. There is not a win for Taylor Swift to do it. If she goes out and she puts on the single greatest performance we've ever seen in the history of the Super Bowl, well, she'll still be the biggest touring act in the world. That's all. She'll still be the biggest selling act in the world for the most part, right? Like, it doesn't change her platform. It just is what everybody would expect her to do. If she goes out and any portion of the performance is even slightly less than people want, or some hater grabs onto something, or something goes wrong, or any of those things, all of a sudden you've given people ammunition for why you're not the best. There's just no win for Taylor in doing it, other than saying, I performed at the halftime show. And I've been lucky enough in my career to work with someone that has musically directed the halftime show 3 times. I understand what an undertaking it is and how much money it costs and how much of your life it consumes. It takes months of planning with teams of hundreds of people and countless hours of rehearsal, all to try and get every single intricate detail right. And then after 12 minutes on stage, which is all you get pre-recorded, it's 12 minutes, right? You get 12 minutes and it's done, and all of a sudden the world gets the rest of time to judge whether or not you did the right 12 minutes, whether or not they appreciated the arrangements of the 12 minutes. Did you have the right celebrity people come in, or should you have more come in? Like, the questions that come from it simply don't make the risk worth the reward that you would get from it. You're already Taylor damn Swift. You don't need the Super Bowl halftime show. I don't think there's any reason she should touch this with a 10-foot pole.
I hear you. I want Taylor. The people need Taylor. And it just feels like it would be the most fairy tale kind of moment, right? Travis Kelce is in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs go in at halftime. They're up by a field goal. Everybody's nervous. Taylor Swift comes out. She's engaged to Travis Kelce. The Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Travis Kelce retires, and then everybody runs off into the sunset. Doesn't that just feel like your modern day fairy tale? Doesn't that seem just so perfectly Taylor Swift? Like, I want Taylor Swift in the halftime show, but I will agree with one thing that you said. She doesn't need this. She might be the only artist and only singer and performer in the world who is bigger than the NFL. And we know that because Taylor Swift, if you can believe it, has made the NFL more popular, not the other way around. And I understand that there are all of, the Taylor Swift haters out there that are listening to me saying that and saying, you're stupid, you're dumb, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're rolling your eyes. But it's true. Taylor Swift has expanded the NFL's audience. The NFL wants to be in the business with Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift doesn't need the NFL. Taylor Swift has been selling out stadiums across the world. Taylor Swift improves the economy in whatever city she goes to when she tours there. And look, I'm not even like a big Swiftie. I just have to give credit where credit is due. The woman is larger than life. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar organization, and she is bigger than it. So I don't think she needs it, but there's one thing left, I think, that she has to do or accomplish or achieve in her career. She sold millions of records, if not billions of records. She sells out stadiums. She's done all of these tours. She's, been a career artist. Like, she's done it since she was a teenager. The one thing that she has yet to do is play the Super Bowl halftime show.
Frankly, I think if Travis had retired, I'd buy more into the concept of her doing it. There's still a chance that her fiance is going to be playing in the Super Bowl. And if he is playing in the Super Bowl and she's performing, she won't get to watch any of it. He won't get to watch any of it. Like, there is this level of like, hey, how many years does he have in the league? She can do the halftime show whenever she wants. Does she want to miss out on the opportunity to possibly watch her fiance play in another Super Bowl so that she can perform?
She's already done it.
It feels to me like it would make a lot more sense to wait until after. And then also, I do want to point out, because people yell about the Super Bowl halftime all the time. She has one major requirement. And I know as a fact that this is a requirement for the NFL. They need your music to transcend from 8 to 80. And what that means is grandkids and grandmas all have to know your songs. So if you are someone that sits there and says, well, why hasn't Metallica played the NFL halftime show? The NFL has no interest in that. They don't want anyone with a narrow audience. They want people that will bring in fans that don't watch the Super Bowl usually. That's certainly not a massive Metallica audience, right? So they want people that will come in from everywhere and where you can sit there and everybody knows the music. That's why you end up with artists that have had hits for long enough that it transcends into, hey, we're in the car and grandma knows the song and so does the grandkid. Like that is what Taylor does have that they look for sure. And that narrows the scope of who they could be looking for the halftime performances. Absolutely. It's part of the reason fans are so often disappointed. They want the most universal act they could possibly get. I genuinely agree. There would be no bigger get for the NFL than to have Taylor Swift play the halftime show. I truly believe that. I also think that the rest of the details around it make it fairly impossible to happen. Now, I don't know who should play the halftime show. Like, we could end up with a world where that's why you see so many collaborations, right? Like, there was the one year many years ago where like Aerosmith played and NSYNC and Britney Spears all at the same time. Well, the reason they did that is they were trying to accomplish young and old. Well, the reason we so often we see weird collaborations, you end up with Bruno Mars and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, is because they're trying to bring in multiple audiences together, right? So I think Taylor does that by herself, and the only way they can do it without somebody like Taylor is to create weird combinations. But that's not Taylor Swift's problem. I still stand by for her. She doesn't need it. For the league, they're going to run out of, at some point in the modern world, they're going to run out of artists that transcend to that level that are willing to do it.
Wouldn't it be crazy if she did the Super Bowl halftime show just because she felt like it? You know, like I think she has every right to refuse doing the Super Bowl halftime show. My goodness. And if she goes to Roger Goodell and says, I want to do this, is Roger Goodell going to tell her no? Like, maybe he does. Maybe I'm so off base here. But I think if she wants to do it, she can do it. And if she doesn't want to do it, she can say no. And to be on the level of stardom that you can pick and choose the Super Bowl, I think is truly inconceivable to me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me because a few years ago we saw, for example, like we're going to be joined in a couple of minutes by Ice Cube. We saw a bunch of hip hop legends come together a couple of years ago in what was it was a memorable, incredible.
It was amazing.
But it took a bunch of people. Like, I think what's more likely this year than Taylor Swift, honestly, is that we end up with a conglomeration of several artists, like country music, for example, where you could bring in, Post Malone and Jelly Roll and Morgan Wallen and Luke Combs and all of these people at once that are all touring and filling stadiums all together in one 12-minute performance. That's a heck of a lot more likely. Unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately, it's just rare for them to give one artist that level of platform. And I'm not sure outside of Taylor there is an artist. We'll continue to break down the halftime show as we get more information because, frankly, it's interesting to everybody. And maybe we'll be shocked. We will find out any day, typically, who is the halftime performer. And if it's Taylor, I want to be clear to Swifties, I love you all, and I hope it's Taylor. It would be a remarkably good performance. I just don't think it will be. From one musician to another, we're going to be joined next by an absolute icon, a legend, Ice Cube, joining the show next. Yahoo Sports Daily. one mic, one mission, 4 decades, all attitude. Ice Cube is bringing truth to power to a city near you. This isn't nostalgia, it's legacy in motion. That from Live Nation, Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. And now we are thrilled to welcome him in right there. Actor, writer, producer, founder of the Big Three, fellow Raiders fan. Most importantly, the only word that actually works for him, icon, joining us right now. Ice Cube, man, we appreciate your time. Your new tour starts Denver, September 16th. Why now? Why decide to tour right now?
Man, you know, when you look up and you've been in the game 40 years, it's time to celebrate that. It's time to, you know, get with your fans, your day one fans. And at this point, we got day 2, day 3, day 4 fans. And celebrate the music, celebrate the journey. This is my biggest production I've ever, you know, put on. And I've put on some pretty big ones. So I'm very anxious to be able to have the time to dig into the catalog and to really go on this 40-year journey with the audience.
And what a 40-year ride it has been. You're gonna look a day over 40, I'll tell you that. Your new album, Man Up, comes out September 12th. The first single before hip hop, that drops tomorrow. Just newsflash to everybody listening. Tell us about that song and why that one was chosen to be your first single.
Well, you know, if you really listen to, you know, what's been going on, there's this notion going around that hip hop is the reason for all of the world's problems, you know, especially here in America. And so, you know, I was there. I remember how things were before hip hop, and it wasn't so pretty then. So, you know, hip hop is a mirror of what's going on and not the root cause. And so it's, you know, it's something to me that is starting to get lost in translation. So I wanted to do a record to really just give people a history lesson on really what was going on before hip hop. And I think I think it's right for this Man Up record for sure.
So let me ask you, I want to have a real moment here because I was in a band that was lucky enough to have some hits. And I remember when we put out our second record, and the most nerve-wracking moment of my life was putting out music that you'd worked for and just not knowing how the world would respond to it, and just thinking about how much expectation there is to music and then where it comes from. You're a legend. Like for you, when you release a song, what's the emotional moment for you when the world hears it for the first, knowing that you're going to have lovers, you're going to have haters, you're going to have all of these different voices. What's your emotional sort of channel going to be tomorrow when you release new music to the world?
You know, I'm really focused on the core fan, the core Ice Cube fan. You know, that's who I'm trying to please. The world got to get in where they fit in. But these core fans been with me from day one. And they, they're into the music, they're into, my career, and they've been supporting me forever. So I want to make sure they're happy with the record. Everybody else, kind of it's art, man, so like a painter, does a painter care if you really like his painting? He put it on the wall and he's gone. So I'm gonna put this out and I'm gonna be gone. You know what I mean? I'm on the road, I'm doing shows. People gonna love it, they're gonna like it, some gonna hate it. It's not my concern. What's my concern is getting out the inspiration, doing new music, enjoying the music. I like it. So, that's a good start. And so you can't chase fans. All you can do is do great work, do great art, try to give them something that inspire them to, to kind of understand what's going on. I've always kicked street knowledge. That's my style. So this is more street knowledge from your homeboy Ice Cube. We put Man Down out last year. So after Man Down, you got to go Man Up.
It only makes sense. And like your music has superseded music. I mean, it's just become a subset of culture. And that's what happens when you have a 40-year ride. Now, the big three hasn't been on a 40, but an 8-year ride. And that in and of itself is incredibly impressive. It's a long time for a startup league. So, what has it been like for you to witness this journey, to be right in the middle of this, to go from concept to now fixture in the sports landscape?
Yeah, well, when I look at that, I'm looking at 10 and a half years of um of just, first thinking about it as a fan. I wanted to see this as a fan. And I looked around and nobody was even thinking about doing it. And then I looked at, the people I got around me, and I saw that we had the talent to actually do it. I thought we was going to get a lot of love from the NBA, which didn't happen. So that, we had to kind of switch reels and change, energy and make it work. And we had to go through a COVID year where we didn't have a season. And so, and then to continue to survive, in a bubble, and all those crazy things that was happening in 2020 and 2021. And it's been a labor of love. Like I said, I did this as a fan because I was sick of hibernating during when the finals was over in the NBA. I would hibernate till the NFL started. So I was sick of that. I wanted something that we could do in the summer that was cool, and people love it.
Okay, so you obviously made a big change this year because you got city-based franchises for the first time. Why'd you decide to make that big change?
Well, we knew in success, this is where we wanted to be. We knew we had to basically introduce the sport to the country. So we wanted to go everywhere we could, showing people how great Big Three is. Then we knew to really grow this league, we had to sell franchises and set our flag in cities. That's how you really unlock the fan base. And so this is part of the journey. We're in cities now and forever, and we'll continue to add cities and add teams to this league and grow it. So the city model has been perfect for us. It's been great, and it has opened up a big fan base for the league.
The logos are so good. Just let me know whenever you're
fire.
ready to come to Charlotte.
Yeah.
I got you. I can be your city ambassador. Jalen Rose is set to receive the 2025 Ice Cube Impact Award this Saturday. So tell us a little bit about the award, why it's important for you to honor Jalen and his work, and kind of the impact that you hope this continues to grow.
Well, the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame approached me in 2024 and said that they wanted to create an award around me and what I do and the love I have for basketball. So what we did was create the Ice Cube Impact Award. And it's an award that really celebrates people who use basketball to do cool things for the community, for fans, for people in need. And you look around and Jalen Rose has been a great player and a great analyst, but off the court he's been even greater with his academy. And I've been watching him, for it seemed like more than a decade, work hard to really put kids first. So he's used basketball to make the world a better place. And I don't think nobody's more deserving of the Ice Cube Impact Award this year than Jalen Rose.
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. And I love that he's getting recognized for the work that he's doing. See the hat on your head? You're from LA. You're an LA icon. I know you don't love all the teams in LA, though. You've been very vocal about how you do not love those Clippers. Did you see the most recent news from Pablo Torre that the Clippers might be in a little bit of hot water? What was your reaction to that?
I'm a bury the hatchet with the Clippers. Yeah, I've given them a lot of grief over the years. So, I'm not gonna kick them while they got this issue going on. I'm a fan of Kawhi Leonard, without a doubt. And so, I just hope it all clear up and there's a great explanation for this. It doesn't look great. And so, hopefully they can kind of, fix whatever's broke over there. Cause, right now the spotlight's on them and it's not looking good.
It's turned a new leaf, ladies and gentlemen.
We're gonna just hijack this show now, Ice Cube. We're gonna make this a Raider show for a minute because, you're obviously the president of Raider Nation. We all know that. I've got a Raiders tattoo. My God. So you and I are gonna have a little bit of fun. Okay, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
In honor of your tour, okay, Truth to Power. We're gonna play a little game and we're gonna call it Truth or Untruth Raiders Edition. We'll blow through a few of these fast. I'm gonna give you a Raiders question. You tell me truth or untruth. So we'll start with the easy one. Raiders making the playoffs this year, truth or untruth?
Truth.
Oh, see, that's the right answer. It's the only right answer, Caroline. That is the only right answer. Ashton Jeanty wins Offensive Rookie of the Year this year. Truth or untruth?
Wow. Truth. I don't see why he can't. It's really, he got the ball in his hand, and we all know running backs can make a big difference from day one. So I don't see why not.
All right. I'll give you a tough one. They wrote this in the doc. I'm not sure I agree with it. I'll see what you say. Marcus Allen is the greatest Raider of all time. Truth or untruth?
Oh, wow. Now, he's my favorite Raider of all time. Not sure if he's the greatest Raider of all time. Me, I want to go with somebody like Gene Upshaw. Jack Tatum, Kenny Stabler. We got to go with guys who set the tone. We got to go with guys who set the tone, who set the culture. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go back and I'll say Al Davis is the greatest Raider.
That's a quality answer. All right, we're gonna pin you in on this one. This one hits my childhood too. The Las Vegas Raiders don't hit as hard as the LA Raiders did.
Oof.
Truth or untruth?
That's true. I mean, you got to look at how the game was played in the 80s and 90s. Lau Zato, Howie Long. I said Jack Tatum, Atkinson. These dudes will thump you, man, and they could get away with it. Guys now, they got to just tackle you. They can't really thump you like they could in the 80s and the 70s. They can really put the lick on you. So I'm going to have to go with that's untrue, I guess.
Okay. And look, I know what you've called the Tuck rule. You know what you've called the Tuck rule. We can't say it because we're on TV and we'll get in trouble for it. So we'll just go this. Truth or untruth, Tom Brady fumbled the ball. Even more important, now that Brady is a minority owner, do you get to tell Tom Brady, like flat out when you see him on the sideline, do you just go up to him and just say, hey, it was a fumble? He can't deny that from you.
Of course, he know it was a fumble. He didn't even know about the rule. Nobody but George. George Hallis knew about the rule. Nobody knew about that rule. It just came out of nowhere. So yeah, he would say he fumbled.
The tour is Truth to Power, 4 decades of attitude. I have no idea how you put a set together when you have 4 decades of hits. My friend, I have no idea how you make those decisions, but I know I can't wait to see it. Everybody go to icecube.com/tour to get your tickets. Ice Cube, you are a legend and an icon. We appreciate your time, and when the Raiders make the playoffs, come back and gloat with me.
For sure, man, definitely.
Can I hop on the bandwagon?
Awesome.
Can I be a Raiders bandwagon fan with you?
Yeah, you're a bandwagon. Come on.
Set the date.
I'm an NFL free agent, baby. Take me.
Oh, there we go. Ice Cube, thanks for hanging out, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Take it easy, y'all.
That's great stuff from an absolute icon. All right, we'll get you back to some of the sports news. Staggering news yesterday about Hurley stepping down in Connecticut. We'll tell you about it next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Some breaking news this morning. Restricted free agent Cam Thomas is signing a one-year, $6 million qualifying offer to return to the Brooklyn Nets. Sources tell ESPN sides were unable to reach a new deal. So the qualifying offer gives Thomas a full no-trade clause and 2026 unrestricted free agency with 10-plus cap space teams. That's the important part of the news on Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, that you guys need to know. Look, at some point, we understand that there's a group of players that are looking for cash. Unfortunately, there just isn't the cash out there from any teams right now in the WNBA. There isn't the cash out there right now for any of the teams in the NBA because of the mid-cap exception. So what you end up with are players like Cam that have coming off of a really impressive season that in the modern NBA are worth a ton of money, but nobody has the money right there to give them in this moment. So what do? If you're Cam, you sign this one-year, $6 million qualifying offer because even though it's well below what your market value is today, it gives you opportunity. Not right now, not this season, but next year. And when you look at next year, there are going to be over 10 teams with a bunch of money to spend. This is part of the new NBA and the ever so complicated salary cap structure that we all know is just a pain in the butt to try and figure out and try and track. But what we do know is when you're coming off of a year like Cam came off of, where you scored the way he scored, even on a Brooklyn team that's nowhere near contending for anything, you've got to turn around and say, how do I secure my future the most for the long term? In this modern age, this is the best way for Cam to do this. So the one-year, $6 million offer is really just a bridge. It's a stopgap. It'll be interesting to see what it means for next year, because certainly if Cam continues to perform at the level he's already performed at, man, the value is going to skyrocket, and Brooklyn is going to be chasing their tails trying to figure out what the new valuation for Cam should be. Most importantly, he gets the opportunity with no trade and unrestricted free agency to make that decision for himself after what he hopes will be an absolute banger of a season. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz hanging out with you. Caroline, this is just part of what we're looking at in the modern NBA. This is just part of the way it works now.
I mean, there's no doubt Cam Thomas has impacted Cam Thomas's talent. I mean, there's only two players in history with 3 consecutive 40-point games. Cam Thomas and Allen Iverson. Pretty good company to be in. But yeah, this is, I think, a strategic and a smart move by him. It's, hey, let's take a couple of steps backwards in order to not take leaps backwards, in order to take potentially steps forward. Look, I'll take the pay cut. I'll take the pay cut and I want to be in charge of or have say in where I go next. If Cam Thomas gets traded, I mean, he could end up at a team that's far away from contention. He could end up in a city or with a coach that he doesn't want to be with. This is Cam Thomas taking a slight pay cut in order to be able to dictate where he goes in the future, and he's able to exercise free agency. It's a slow play, but frankly, I think it's a smart play and where he's at so far in his career. He's young, and he would be an instant upgrade for really a majority of the teams in the NBA.
Yeah, that's the biggest part of it, too. We constantly try and figure out where to put stars. Well, Cam's going to be somebody that can go in and absolutely be a difference maker somewhere next year and get paid in the process. That's not the only NBA or basketball news that we've seen over the last 24 hours. Some sort of NBA adjacent news came out yesterday that I think is pretty surprising, and that comes in this a report that Dan Hurley considered stepping down after last season, according to a book that he co-authored. So this isn't someone saying it about Hurley. This is Hurley letting it go into writing. And he talked about the emotional drain of trying to win 3 championships in a row, even talked to Fox Sports about becoming a TV analyst. And Caroline, if anything, I read that, and it particularly makes me happy for Hurley and the Lakers that he didn't take the Lakers job. Like, if you think there's pressure for Connecticut to win 3 consecutive championships, what do you think it's like taking the Lakers job? Like, I live 20 minutes from Salulitas, which is the Mexican restaurant that the Hurley family loves to go to after every Connecticut game. They sit there, they have their margaritas, and nobody bothers them. Like, that's what
delicious.
It's like to be the UConn coach. It is Salulitas.
It's a great place.
But,
yeah,
like, nobody bothers him. The number of times I've been in there with the Hurley family, and nobody says anything to him. I understand the pressure he feels, but he's not living in a market where if he goes out to restaurants, somebody's going to throw something at him because they've lost 4 games in a row. He's not living in a market where paparazzi's going to follow him everywhere, especially if LeBron isn't playing well. Like, if he can't handle the pressure of a three-peat, his intensity doesn't handle it well. I just wonder if he understands that maybe he was never made for the NBA game.
I mean, and especially in a city in LA that, look, he's the biggest deal in Connecticut. In LA, if you're not winning, nobody cares about you. And kind of how I responded when I read this quote from Dan Hurley was the pressure of 3 consecutive championships. Oh, that must be so hard. That must be so hard for you to win everything all the time. Boo freaking who. Like, it must be so hard to be so pretty and so popular and so rich and, the team that everybody is chasing. Fitz, can you imagine Michael Jordan saying something like that? Michael Jordan considering stepping away from the game of basketball because winning so much is just too hard. Tom Brady stepping away from football because it's just so much pressure to win all the time. That's not a very, winner mentality. That's not, I don't think, the mentality that anyone would want to have in a coach. And look, I do understand the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. I'm not undermining the amount of pressure that must be on Dan Hurley or any other basketball coach of any other elite program. I understand that. But it is crazy to me to view winning as so much of a burden that you don't want to do it anymore, especially from someone with the temperament and personality of Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley is fiery. Dan Hurley is not afraid to use 4-letter words that start with the letter F at anyone, whether it's a ref or anybody else. So it is shocking to me that Dan Hurley, with the kind of fire and tenacity that he coaches with and the personality that he has, would come out and say something like this. It's just very odd to me from somebody that should be such a competitor and seems like is such a competitor.
I mean, I was at the championship game against Purdue sitting, 10 feet from a coach and heard him absolutely just F-bombing the Purdue players repeatedly throughout the course of the game because that's how he is, right? Like, I was at the last game this season at Stores at the home game for Connecticut when they introduced Dan Hurley and they bring out all the UConn letters to the center of the court and they're all flames throwing out of them and every other player was like, it's clinging, it's so-and-so and so-and-so. And then Dan Hurley, like this introduction that made you feel like you were listening to Michael Jordan be introduced. And also, again, I live in Connecticut. There aren't people out here tearing their hair out saying that Dan Hurley was a complete failure because he didn't win a national championship this year. In fact, most of the fan base seem to understand the difficulty in winning back-to-back. So whatever pressure he's feeling is pressure internalized. But you can't use your intensity as your calling card and the thing that you demand from your players, and then turn around and admit that very intensity is in some ways killing your desire to want to even stand on the sidelines as a coach. This is going to be used against you by every other school that recruits against you. Everybody's going to say, well, do you really want to go to Connecticut? You never know if Hurley's just going to wear himself out. Like, these are the things, you know this, Caroline, being around college sports as much as we both have been. Like, everything you say is used against you by every other coach. Hurley just opened that door. I think it's a shocking admission. It's the sort of admission that has ripple effects to Connecticut, and it also just speaks to the internal thing that Dan Hurley is putting in his own head that's creating this pressure, because it's certainly the pressure that is felt in Connecticut for this basketball team is nowhere near the pressure it's felt of being the Celtics head coach or being, the Patriots head coach or being the Red Sox manager. Right? It's just not the same.
And to your point, it's fair to assume that there are 16, 17-year-old kids that are 5-stars, phenoms, that are getting offers from everywhere across the country. They might read that and say, well, I want a coach that wants to win. I don't want a coach that's overwhelmed by winning. And look, I've never been a college coach. I think that's obvious. But I can only imagine the only thing harder than what it sounds like Dan Hurley is talking about, portraying how hard it is to try and win 3 consecutive national championships. The only thing harder than that is losing. The only thing harder than that is being under the pressure of a media and a fan base with incredibly high expectations and falling short of those expectations. Dan Hurley has the comfort of 2 back-to-back national championships under his belt. It's going to keep him warm at night.
Yeah, and a stacked bank account next to all of it too. So hopefully Coach is able to recenter and give himself the fresh start he needs coming into the season, because college basketball is better when Hurley is at his best. We'll be at our best with you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, recapping Thursday Night Football, getting you ready for the weekend. Thank you so much for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. See you tomorrow morning.